The record-breaking drought in California has so-called experts on every side arguing about whom is to blame for the fact we are now in year 4 of a nightmare. People in Beverly Hills still gorging their green lawns on water while farmland turns dirt and brown, and everyone's suddenly an expert. But what they're missing in all this is the American wallet, maybe even the American dining table. Our guest is the Wall Street columnist from MarketWatch.com, and who recently penned the article, Why the California Drought Will Be Worse Than Everyone Thinks. Let's welcome David Weidner to MidPoint. David, we thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
David, before we get into the guts of the article here, it is fair to say, though, that suddenly this has created a whole new aura, if you will, of people who are suddenly experts in water control and water management, has it not?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because you can see, you look just beyond the surface and you see the motivations behind them, the special interests that they're representing or that they're trying to get that argument out for. So yeah, we see everybody seems to have an opinion. That's absolutely correct.
Well, this also brings us to the thinking process, and we've kind of been knocking this around here in the office for a while, with regard to the fact that California is one of the biggest food baskets in America. Most people don't realize that many times. Yeah. So now there's the thinking with the drought, with the fact there's so little water, what's this going to do to the American wallet and then to the food that we put on our tables?
Well, I think that's a critical issue, and one that I took a look at for the column. The reality is that you're absolutely correct. California is bigger than the 4 next biggest states combined in terms of agricultural production. It is 99% of most of the nuts we eat. It's more than 90% for tomatoes, and other vegetables, broccoli. It is a significant $22 billion in food revenue a year in the state. So this drought has the potential to be very disruptive. Now, I think a lot of your viewers will say, well, California has had a lot of droughts in the past and we haven't seen a big impact. I think the problem this time around is that there is less reserve water for the state. Farmers are going to be forced out of production. This is going to be very disruptive. How does this translate to you and me? We're going to be paying higher food prices. There may not be shortages, it may not be significant at first, but this is going to cause tremendous disruption to the industry here. California's water problems are not going away, and the reality is many farmers are going to have to decide whether they want to try to stick to it, pay the higher costs, or get out altogether.
Do the experts and the people that you talk to, and I mean the real experts here, do they have any sort of an idea, I guess it's going to be a guess at this point, that if indeed California should return to some sort of normalcy regarding weather, how long it would take to catch up to a lot of the food issues here and a lot of these growth issues?
Well, the issue right now is that in the short term, let's say if we get our rainy season is the rest of the country's winter. If we happen to get a normal rainy season, that will hold us over, and if we get out of the drought anytime soon, that would be fine. That we would be okay. The problem is that most weather climatologist experts say that this pattern is going to persist for a while, and so down the road, especially next year, some of these reserves, especially the underground aquifers in the state, are going to either be running very low or dry up altogether, and that means all those wells that they've been that farmers have been trying to tap to help get water. It's going to be even more expensive, or those wells aren't going to work at all. So we're looking at something that we're very much on the cusp of some dramatic changes for the agricultural industry for the state, and of course for residents too. We're already seeing the governor's order about cuts, so it's hitting all phases of the state now. And the economists say it's only a matter of time before it hits the rest of the nation and our pocketbooks.
When you talk about that, the last line in your story is a storm is coming, whether it be inflation or rain. With about a minute to go then, what do they tell you then regarding that inflation? Is there any idea, concept, a thought process of what people are going to be facing now? It's going to be more, I think, than just a buck for strawberries. It will then work its way into a number of different areas, correct?
Right. So the short answer is for specific food, it's going to be significant increases, 30%, and this is just in the short term. This is just this year. The some of the produce that comes out of the state, asparagus, that kind of thing, is going to be much more expensive. Many of the crops grown here, we will see small impact on CPI, the Consumer Price Index. The real problem starts next year when many of these crops are going to become prohibitively expensive to grow. That means we're going to see less in the marketplace, supply and demand. We could see prices shoot up. Some of the experts talk about 50% doubling of prices. That's going to hit pocketbooks. Remember, food is a big part of the American budget, the household budget, and it's one that we can't really tinker with. I mean, we can adjust our driving habits for gasoline, but everybody's got to eat, and I think that's one overlooked point about the drought.
Of all this with the drought, absolutely. Remind everybody it's on MarketWatch.com why the California drought will be worse than everyone thinks. David Weidner is the author. David, thank you very much for joining us, and MidPoint will continue.